Yeah. Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a good night. And we're ready to work very vigorously this morning because we have a lot of agenda items to get through. And we really would like to finish in good time. We don't want to finish too late in the afternoon. All right, so you would recall that yesterday we had 3 agenda items remaining from yesterday's schedule. So we are going to take agenda item 15, which is on the approval of amendment to the MOU between the Conference of the Parties serving as the meetings of the parties to the Kyoto Protocol and the GEF Council. And then we're going to move on to agenda item 16, strengthening consultations with the civil society. And then we're going to move on to any other business. Those are the 3 items remaining left over from yesterday's schedule. So with that said, we're going to invite Miko to make his presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Good morning. I am Mikko Lekan. I'm the manager of the Adaptation Fund Board Secretariat, and it's a great pleasure to address all of you this morning. The GEF has served as the Secretariat of the Adaptation Fund Board since 2008, practically immediately after the Adaptation Fund Board was set up. The Secretariat services are provided by a dedicated team of officials that is operating in a functionally independent manner. I'd like to start by mentioning that the Adaptation Fund has a very good cooperation with the GEF, and we get excellent support also from the GEF Secretariat. The amendment of the MOU at the moment is almost a procedural matter, as it essentially continues the existing arrangement that has been in place since 2009, and that has turned out to work very well. The amendment is brought about by the decisions at the Unfccc COP24 in Katowice last year by the meetings of parties of the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement that decided that the Adaptation Fund started formally serving the Paris Agreement with respect to all matters relating to the Paris Agreement effective 1st of January of this year. At that time, the parties requested the Adaptation Fund Board to consider a number of aspects of the fund's setup and operations, including the Secretariat arrangements and trustee arrangement, in light of the fact that the fund is now also serving the Paris Agreement. The Adaptation Fund Board, supported by us, the Secretariat, went through that exercise and essentially found that with regard to the Secretariat arrangement, relatively small amendments are sufficient at this time, essentially just updates to the MOU text that is now 10 or 11 years old, to update it rather than any substantial changes to the roles and responsibilities. Along this process, we consulted with the leadership of the GEF Secretariat and with the Unfccc Secretariat that represented the other party to the MOU, the CMP. The Adaptation Fund is currently in a transitional period where it serves both the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement, and the MOU is made between the GEF Council and the CMP, which is the Conference of Parties serving as the meeting of parties of the Kyoto Protocol. However, it should be noted that in some years' time, and we don't know exactly when this will happen, the Adaptation Fund will transition to exclusively serve the Paris Agreement. And at that time, there would be a need for a new MOU where the CMP will be replaced by the CMA, the meeting of parties of the Paris Agreement, as the other party to the MOU. It was concluded in the consultation with the various stakeholders that it's preferable not to prejudge the content of that future MOU in the current proposed amended MOU. So last week in Madrid at the COP25, the parties to the Kyoto Protocol decided to adopt the amended and restated Memorandum of Understanding that is in your meeting documents, and it's now presented for consideration and approval by the Council. I will stop here and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Miko. So now the floor is open to any questions on the amendment to the MOU. So there are no questions to Miko on the matter. The Secretary needs to say anything? No? Okay, and so I will invite the Council now to review the decision related to this matter. Are there any objections to the decision? No objections, decision is adopted. Thank you very much. Colleagues, let us turn our attention to agenda item 16 on strengthening the consultations with the civil society. And now we invite Francois. Francois. Okay. So you will make the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. This paper before you responds to the Council-approved updated vision to enhance civil society engagement with the GEF, which states that regarding participation of civil society in council and consultations, the Council will invite CSOs to present on specific topics during the consultation with CSOs intended to highlight the experiences of local CSOs during project implementation. Further, the updated vision states that to allow for adequate preparation, the GEF Council will select consultation meeting topics around 6 months or 1 meeting before each consultation meeting as appropriate, recognizing that topics can be updated within 6-month period in light of new circumstances and as needs may arise. This paper presents 2 topics that Council may consider to be discussed at subsequent GEF consultations with CSOs preceding the Council meetings in 2020. The Council may either select one of the topics, both topics, or a new topic to be discussed in these future consultations. The suggested topics have been consulted with the GEF CSO network and with the Indigenous People Advisory Group, and these topics focus on areas that are relevant to the implementation of GEF 7 and where civil society and Indigenous peoples can contribute with their views and expertise to the achievement of GEF's mission and expected outcomes. The topics that are proposed are: first, the application of traditional knowledge by Indigenous peoples and local communities, stewards of the global environment, and the second topic is enhancing climate resilience and the role of civil society, Indigenous peoples, and local communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pilar. Are there any questions? The floor is now open. So for CSO network.
Many thanks, Madam Chair, for giving us this opportunity at the beginning, and I believe it will help us. So I will not read the statement as we have written word by word, but I will share what our aspiration on this particular issue. First, I want to talk about the resilience. Resilience is something that cannot be seen during the project life. Globally, what we have been developing, all the projects and programs, it doesn't have the opportunity, doesn't have the access to measure, to quantify, to see what level resilience is. So civil society have vigorous experiences from the grassroots level because they are the people at the front line. They are experiencing the difficulties and they have the opportunity to cope with that. So from that experiences, we have come up with some mechanism, we call it resilience framework, to demonstrate how to measure, and that can be helping. So with that expectation, we proposed resilience. And to reach to that level of resilience, we need advanced level of adaptation. Because the current adaptation, it is not giving us enough protection. As a result, the losses and damages from flood and drought and others have been increasing a lot. So we need to see what level of adaptation. I just give you one example. We talked about community forestry. On Monday afternoon, the council member from Mauritius and also the council member from Mongolia, they raised 2 key points. At the forest community level, they are poor. So they have their own way to have their livelihood. They can they will be the one to cut the trees, they will be the one to hunt the animals, how to protect them. So the adaptation for them is, we need to find a mechanism, community-based, community-owned, and community revolving fund, so that they will not go to hunt the trees, animals and cut the trees. And there will be a mechanism that it will help them to increase the population of trees and animals. So there can be, this mechanism will support them to see what level of incentives, and then that can top up with their adaptation mechanism. They will be the main key actors to safeguard the forest communities. Currently, it is not happening. So we have to see case by case, and then that level of resilience we talk about. Second is local and community indigenous knowledge. The indigenous knowledge, local knowledge, there are a lot of good practices, but to maximize that practices, we have to have certain level of mechanism to ensure that it is followed. The CSO government and private sector dialogue platform we proposed, that can be one of the key tools to access to those level of local knowledge. And then it will add benefit to the community levels. Indigenous peoples' experiences, their targets, all the mechanisms have to be discussed and then come out from these existing boxes to see in an innovative way, so that the interest of the indigenous people, the issue of the local knowledge, and then topping up from the science and adaptation-based advanced technology, all can together bring the mechanism in top up. So I would like to stop our statement here, and then I will raise my flag again when need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gabrielle?
Thank you, Co-Chair. Our seat would like to support both topics proposed for 2020's civil society consultations. Traditional knowledge is extremely relevant to addressing environmental challenges in our region. For example, in New Zealand, a range of relevant environmental policies, actions, and reports are informed by traditional knowledge of Māori. This includes, amongst other things, our National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, as well as our environmental reporting. Our Environmental Protection Authority recently published a pioneering framework guiding the incorporation of Māori perspectives in its decision-making. And in Australia, traditional knowledge is being harnessed and combined with satellite technology, resulting in innovative, world-leading savanna fire management practices developed by Indigenous Australians. This approach is being shared internationally to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve land management, and also provide economic benefits through international carbon markets revenue. Traditional knowledge systems are a rich source of local information in the wider Pacific, particularly in relation to protecting biodiversity and sustainable resource management. So the Pacific region's Indigenous peoples and local communities may have a lot to contribute. We'd like to note that Indigenous peoples and local communities in the Pacific also play an important role in enhancing climate resilience. We look forward to hearing about such experiences from the GEF and other projects from other parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Aparna?
Thank you, Co-Chair. I also add my voice to supporting the selection of the two topics for discussion with the CSOs, consultation with the civil society in June 2020 and December 2020. In our constituency, we have a rich background of the use of traditional knowledge in several sectors. For example, in health and use of medicinal plants, in the use of plants for biological pest control, for reducing the use of chemicals and pesticides in agriculture, and in the protection and conservation of the wildlife. And there have been good experiments and successful initiatives for incorporating indigenous people and local communities as stewards of the environment and particularly in wildlife. I believe that there will be a rich exchange of views, and it would be extremely useful to have staff members also participate in these consultations, because the challenge now is to provide a scientific backing for traditional knowledge, and allow for its uniform and widespread application rather than extremely local use. We also support the subject of enhancing climate resilience. As just spoken by Mr. Akhtar Sano, I believe that this is an important area, particularly when we are looking at those disasters which are not large scale or sudden events, but are very insidious and spread over a long period of time. I believe that the role of civil society, local communities will be very important. So we very happily support both these topics.
Thank you, Aparna. Vituri, please.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Just looking around the room, I can't see any Pacific CSO representative, but I think their role is one that is sometimes unappreciated, yet they are the backbone in terms of implementing a lot of GEF proposals. It was the main reason why we spoke in support of the small client scheme, because they are the ones who are actually implementing it. So I think that the importance of the traditional knowledge cannot be overemphasized. I think as far as the Pacific Small Island Developing States, especially mine, science is something that is appreciated by those who know science, but at the end of the day, it's the traditional knowledge that has been leading us in terms of implementation on the ground. I always maintain that it's good to have global frameworks like the Paris Agreement, the SDGs, you name it. But at the end of the day, they don't come with any dedicated stream of funding. So you have to regionalize some of these global frameworks, but more importantly, you need to localize them. I've even gone as far and say we need to Samoanize these global frameworks, because that's the only way our local communities can relate to. That's when they touch, see, and smell what GEF is doing. So I think that's by way of supporting the topics that have been selected. And I think small as we may be, I think we have heaps to contribute to that conversation. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Faturi. Last speaker on the list is Stefan.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Our constituency agrees with the proposed topics for the next two CSO consultation. And the importance has been highlighted by the representative of the CSO and by some colleagues around the table. Our intervention is more about how to say, the fundamental, the mechanics of how do we as a council, the Secretariat, work together with CSO. It was about 2 years ago that we adopted the updated vision to enhance civil society engagement. Now, personally, I've always participated in these CSO consultations. This time I was here, but I was stuck in other meetings, so I couldn't benefit from it. I've always thought they were highly interesting to hear the voices from civil society. But I'm not sure how that one then plugs into the operation of the council. I still feel like there's a certain detached, there's something going on Monday, and then we move on, and Tuesday the council starts. So the very concrete proposal by Aparna, I think it was you, said it would be good if staff participated in it. That's certainly one where you build the bridge and connect the dots. And I know that Naoko, you always open the session, you're always there. Some colleagues from the Secretariat are there too. Maybe I'm too far away to see how the flow goes. And it may be my fault if I don't see how the dots are connected, but it could be a little bit more made more visible. And this is whatever the topic is always chosen by the CSOs in their deliberations. It has to be useful for the operation, not just an interesting exchange amongst experts is also valuable, but we have to see that we benefit as a GEF from it, and as a GEF, probably even beyond GEF Second Council, also the entities. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Stefan was not indeed the last speaker. The CSO network again, please.
Thank you, Madam, again for this opportunity, and we appreciate for accepting these proposed two agendas. Now I would like to propose how we want. So one of the suggestion is, currently our CSO consultation, first day in the morning, I would like to propose that we should have all council members in the consultation. No parallel event, kindly not to organize, so that we lost the opportunity. In addition, I would like to also propose invite at least 6 to 8 ministers. As for example, 2 ministers from Asia, 2 from Africa, 2 from Latin America, and 2 from developed countries. And then in the morning session, they will attend, they will make some comments, but in the afternoon session, we will design in a way so that they can really support us. The objective is to let these key decision makers contribute significantly, and I believe as they are the ministers, they have the greater soul than I have. So if we can bring them, if we can help them to understand the challenges, I strongly believe they have the way forward. So afternoon session, at least we will have 1 or 2 hours, one hard round table. So we will present what is about, and then we will request for their advice, their recommendation, and their guidance. And I believe it will help us a lot. And we also want to engage the private sectors in this consultation, because in our experience in understanding, I hope you will agree, we have dividation, government, private sector, civil society, many way. It is our dividation, but at the community level, when flood come, when drought come, when temperature rise, when cyclone come, it affects equally to everybody. So we need to bring all those actors on board to present the challenges, present the opportunities, and then give a mechanism, way forward, and then they can support us. If we don't bring them on board, they don't hear directly from us, then it will be very difficult to reach them with this original message. And then this is the mechanism of knowledge management. This is the mechanism of multi-stakeholder dialogue. So what we expect at the grassroots level, that we should demonstrate at the global level. And I strongly recommend and I request council members to comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CSO Network. Marita, sorry. Good morning.
Thank you. I hadn't planned to intervene, but I would just like to propose to support the idea that we should try to avoid to have as many parallel events as we had this time during the CSO consultation, so that we have a chance to be there during the whole day. Thank you.
Thank you, Marita. Can I ask the Naoko to respond?
Thank you so much for this very lively exchange of views, and just observing that this journey since this new policy being adopted, I did see a huge improvement and in this the quality of the dialogue. So, and particularly for the last 2-3 sessions, and since that where the you together with CSO committee and the council together actually selected the topic of the discussion, a lot of preparation actually that devoted to that one, and I have observed quite an interesting exchange, be it in a marine plastic session, that in a wildlife trafficking session. I see that the community really coming together, and it's so interesting to, and I was so impressed to see it's not only CSOs, but also the agencies and the allies and the partners. Yesterday we had such a respected two leaders of the wildlife and trafficking. And then that, of course, the GEF Secretariat, GEF Sec staff. So I think that and it has actually had a lot of impact on the project and the formulation and the implementation. It's a kind of living thing. It's not just a one-off time thing. So that just in responding to some question that if it has any impact or that it's still connect or disconnect, of course we can do more, but then I actually would like to recognize that the progress you have been making together, and I just witness it. And then our staff also that then have quite gained a lot of knowledge and input and actually stimulus going forward, so that then of course we can do maybe better, more. But I just want to say that upfront, and this suggestion of that and how we can do it better, that then I very much agree with you that then we try not to have too many parallel events, though there are quite a number of needs, but we just need to maybe find a good way to actually to line up those competing demands. Some discussions are also important. That the MEA discussion was important, very well attended. CSO discussion was important, and sometimes we have different topics. So maybe that ahead of time we try to see that how better we can organize ourselves so that we don't necessarily have to split the team into the several events. So this is more like a homework for the next session, and we try to also invite the senior policymakers, the decision makers as much as possible. So we will do it better, but again, that we need your collaboration to make it happen. This is a joint homework for all of us. So with that, you can.
Good, thank you very much, Naoko. So, council members, we have in front of us a decision related to this matter. So I invite you to review it. Are there any objections to the decision? No objections? The decision is so adopted.
Any other business?
Yeah. So council members, we have one other matter remaining from yesterday, agenda item 18 on any other business. And there are two matters that we need to raise, matters related to the options for the dates for the council meetings up to 2022, and issues related to the ethics committee. I will invite William to introduce the issues for our discussion. William, please.
Well, thank you very much, Co-Chair. Let me start with the composition of the ethics committee. This draft decision that is being distributed now was sent out by email yesterday. Hopefully you saw it. Essentially, we have three tasks to do for that committee. One is that the council member from Ukraine and from the constituency of Albania, Bulgaria, and basically Eastern and Central Europe has moved on to other duties and therefore is no longer council member. And his successor, our colleague Ornella Cucci from Albania, who is the new council member, has accepted to take the membership of the ethics committee. Then Ms. Yoshiko Motoyama, alternate from Japan, has also accepted to join, replacing Joss Wheatley. And we need to appoint a new chair, and Adriana Flaquier of the constituency of Brazil, Colombia, and Ecuador has also accepted to take on that position. So essentially that's the content of this decision. Can I offer the floor in case there are any comments?
council members are invited to comment. So can we move to adopt the decision with the changes in the Ethics Committee? Thank you very much.
All right, and then the other topic that we usually discuss at this time is meeting dates. I should call them potential because we've had to change them so many times, but the reason we do it so far in advance is that to be able to reserve this room, we need to have those dates 2 years in advance. So we're on to, let me first go on to the coming meetings, and then we'll go to the dates of 2022. So the 58th Council meeting, just to remind, is the first week of June next year, June 2 to 4. The 59th meeting is the week of December 8 to 10, 2020. The 60th meeting, June 15 to June 17, 2021. And the 61st Council meeting, December 7 to 9, 2021. Those decisions were already taken. This is just a reminder of what we have decided in the past. So now we have to look at 2022, which will be the 62nd and 63rd. The 62nd, of course, this is thinking in advance, but will be back-to-back with the Assembly, right? So we're just going to say in the decision that it will be back-to-back with the Assembly. And whenever we decide the Assembly, we'll know what the date is, okay? And the 63rd is proposed for December 6 to 8, 2022. Based on the information we have today about what meetings are happening that year. So that's where we stand on the dates. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Manrique?
Gracias.
Thank you. I wanted to speak briefly, but not on one of these two topics. I don't know if I should make my remarks now. He is saying that he would like to speak, but not on these two topics.
That you're going to raise. Brenda, please.
I just wanted to ask if they could repeat the dates for actually for the next meeting in June, which is
The next meeting in June is the first week in June, June 2 to 4. That will be the next meeting next year.
Okay, thank you. So there are no other questions, read the dates. We're all satisfied with the dates, so the dates are acceptable. So now we give the floor again to Manrique to raise the matter that he wanted to.
Thank you very much. Para consideración.
Thank you very much. For consideration of the council members, we would like to say that our constituency of Latin America has been talking last night and this morning about the SOC committee, and we think it would be important for the region to be represented. And we think that if it's possible for the council to consider the number of members that sit on the committee. Right now, there are 3 and 3. So without affecting that membership, it would be good to increase the number of members so as to include 1 member from the Latin American region. Thank you. And of course, in that case, there should be 1 more member on the donor side.
Thank you, Manrique. To what, Manrique, please?
Thank you, yes.
Yes, and thank you. I would merely like to confirm that the Brazil, Colombia, and Ecuador constituency supports what was said by Manrique about, and he is from the Southern Cone.
So the issue on the table is the expansion of the membership. Is it in relation to that as well, Dan? Is it in relation to that matter? Okay, Dan, please.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. There are a lot of new members in the African region. It would be useful to remind what the topic of conversation is and which are the principles on which this committee was created. It would be very useful for the information of the new members. Thank you.
Aparna, please.
So as rightly pointed out by Dan, the SRC has been operating for several years now and has possibly also conducted earlier selection of CEO. However, since there are 4 clearly listed regions, especially for the recipients, if we are able to maintain the balance of recipients and non-recipients in the SRC, perhaps we should be open to the suggestion made by Manrik if it does not create any onerous administrative burden. I feel that particularly in the selection of the CEO, which is something that happens once in a while, there is a lot of interest, and no region should feel that its concerns are not fully taken care of. Though being a member from the recipient country's side, I can assure that we will try to be equally open to candidates from all parts of the world, whether they are from recipients or non-recipient. But we should be able to discuss Manrik's suggestion with an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Aparna. Peter, could you just give us an overview of the mandate of the SRC, the composition, and just remind the group again the decision that was taken yesterday about the membership, just for everybody to have all the information. Then we can discuss Manrik's.
Thank you, Gillian. First, I'd remind council members that under our executive session yesterday, a paper was circulated which had some background information which may be useful for new and existing members to have a look at. But in summary, the mandate of the committee stretches back to 2012, and in terms of membership, was confirmed by Council Paper GEF/C40/06, which states that the committee has 6 members, 3 from contributing country participants and 3 from recipient country participants. And that's a decision of Council, so Council, of course, may revisit that at any point. Regarding that decision, the terms for each of the members has been 3 years on a rolling basis. So 2 members join, serve 3 years at the end of year 3, but then in year 2 and in year 3. So each year 2 of the 6 step off, 1 from the recipient and 1 from the non-recipient side, and 2 new members join. Of course, we respect the country groupings to the greatest extent possible, but as is clear from this discussion, there are 4 regional groupings on the recipient side of the council, and there are only 3 seats available. So it has been the practice of the committee that as one member exits from the recipient side, a representative from one of the constituencies from the 4th regional grouping that had not, for the previous period, been on the committee would join. So that way, there's each year, the three of the four regional groupings are represented. We have in the past, I think, struggled to always find people who've been able to afford the time, but the principle has maintained throughout that we will try per the limit of 6 seats, three recipient, 3 non-recipient, to cycle through the country groupings. So to that end, the council noted yesterday in executive session that the membership for 2020 would comprise, for recipient countries, Aparna, whose term ends at the end of 2020, Ornella, who has effectively taken the place that Vladislav, our colleague from Ukraine, had started in the previous year. So Ornella has joined the committee with a term to finish in 2021, at the end of 2021. And then to replace Marta, who had been a Latin America representative for the last 3 years with her own predecessors. Coletta will join as of 2020, representing an African constituency. On the non-recipient side, Carola is on the committee, and her term will finish at the end of 2020. Matthew from the United States, whose term finishes on 2021. And noting that my own term in this seat finishes at the end of 2019, the new non-recipient country member of the committee from the beginning of next year is our colleague from Japan, Yoshitomo, apologies, who will serve a 3-year term till the end of 2022. So that's been the practice, and that's what's legislated in council decisions. Having said that, it was a consideration of the council to do its level, of the committee, sorry, to do its level best to, ensure the broadest representation from across the groupings, and there has been this tension between 4 regional groupings and only 3 seats available. So, speaking not as the chair of the committee, but rather as the representative of this seat, I think this is a fair point. I think in terms of equal representation, we should favourably consider an expansion of the committee from 6 members to 8, and I note that Aparna similarly supported, Manrika, your suggestion. It would require a decision of council. The committee cannot make this decision. Perhaps if we are favourable, we could ask our colleagues in the Secretariat to very quickly draft some simple text, and presumably if we agree that by consensus here today, it can take immediate effect. Starting from next year. It would, of course, mean that we would need to find an expression of interest to serve on the committee from another non-recipient member. So perhaps colleagues around the table might want to start thinking about that now. But I might stop there, having gone over the background, but with the suggestion that if we are so inclined, if the Secretariat could perhaps suggest a very simple, quick decision text we could consider and take forward from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.
Thank you, Peter. So I see Marita, followed by Cordula.
Thank you. I think it's a bit hard to take a decision on this right now. So I would suggest that you do try to find a procedure whereby we can agree between now and the next council, because I think we need to have also the time to select a new member on the other side. Thank you.
I would also like to reflect a bit more on what this means. At this special moment, I understand that everybody is interested in joining this committee. But we have a lot of committees on this council, and we always find it difficult to get people on these committees to work on the different issues. And we find it difficult to meet with each other. And the bigger committees, the more difficult it will become to find a time for a meeting, especially if people are in very different regions of the world. you never find the time. I think Peter can tell this. So, and I think we have a good practice here on this council that committees are constituted of 6 members and not more than that. So I would like that we take our time to think about what we are deciding here and what precedents it might make to other committees. And well, if we were to decide this here, it's also the Latin American group, well, they probably have already thought up who would they want to be on this committee, but also for our side, we would need some time to reflect. And I don't think it's a good moment in this situation where we know every week counts to have a new CEO at the mid of next year, that we start up this whole discussion, and until we get to a decision, the committee will not be able to decide on anything. We will have to name somebody also from our side. I think this is very short notice, and although I can understand the Latin American group, but maybe you should have thought about this earlier.
Thank you, Cordula. We have Rob, followed by Brenda.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We just are intervening to support what Marita and Germany just said, where we think the Cordula just said. We think we need to think about this a little more. We need to have some time to think about who we would put forward from our side, and also if there's any other implications with respect to this decision. So I just want to echo the points of Marita and Cordula. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Brenda, please.
Hi, thank you. It seems to me that since this is the first time I joined you in these meetings, and this kind of arguments are coming around, and I think it's have been more than once, it's probably, and this is just putting in the table and see what the rest of the members think, that probably we'll need to set up our rules, written procedures, or if there is not already being there, of how you select and renew the members of the committee, to avoid, as I think some of the members have said, having this kind of discussion at this point in time. I do recognize it's important for this particular SRC committee at this time on the selection of the CEO, and I think all regions, and in that regard, I support Latin America to be part of that decision. But for future references, I think it will be very useful if we can note that and probably request that either to the committee or to the staff, whatever makes better, in order to have these procedures written down so that everybody knows how it's going to be this new election of the members. Because it was mentioned yesterday that it's desired to rotate among regions, but it's not like a fixed procedure, though. So if we get to put it like in a written way, I think it would help us out to understand the procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Peter, please.
Thank you, Gillian. I just, for the record, think it's important to note that this rotational arrangement has been in SRC reports to the Council for at least the last 2 years in our meetings, if not longer. And the question of rotations has been in the documentation circulated under executive session for those 2 years, and has been a discussion point at each of those meetings. So I recognise that there are new members of the Council, but this has been communicated, and further we have, through the Secretariat's good offices, on a number of occasions actually sought expressions of interest to serve on the committee. So I would just want to reassure colleagues perhaps less familiar with the work of the Council and with the SRC in particular, that this has been a standing discussion and noted point for at least the last 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Yoshitomoto? Tomo? Sorry, my apologies.
No. Good morning, colleagues. Yoshitomo, Yoshimoto, it's over has been thank you, Co-Chair. From our perspective, while we fully understand that the concerns raised by the Latin American group, from our side, from the perspective of governance of this institution. I echo what is being raised by Cordula, but the implication of this issue to the other committees and what kind of a precedent that we are making here. So I think from our side, we should be carefully thinking about the future implication of this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ben, please.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Yeah, I think I'd also just like to come in maybe behind some of the points already made by Cordula and Marita. I think one of the issues here is that firstly, I think we totally understand the concern which is being expressed here, but I think it's also useful to recognise that the SRC, I think, has done a very good job, and I think we have confidence in what they're doing. And there is a question about why fix something which is not broken. I think it is working very well. The other point I think which was made is that we have a very short time frame now to recruit the next CEO, and I think interfering with that process at this late stage I think could be risky. I think maybe the last point to also make is that to a certain extent, my understanding is the SRC members who go onto that committee, they're not doing it on behalf of their own country or their particular region. They're doing it on behalf of the council, recipient countries. So I think that if we're trying to get everyone being represented on that committee, there is a question about how large does this committee have to get before everyone feels their view is being represented. So my sense is that we need to be clear about the reason why people are on this committee. They're representing the council. So I think, particularly given the circumstances and the short amount of time we have, I think leaving it for now as we are, I think, is the best course of action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And I think we've had a fulsome discussion on it. I think it was good that Manrique and Adriano raised it. I don't think, though, that the feeling of the room, though, is that we should disrupt the SRC's construct at this point. It may be something that they may want to take up at another point, but we are in the process now of doing the selection of the CEO. We don't want that process to be delayed or derailed because of trying to deal with the composition of the SRC at this point. If that's said, I think it's the feeling of the room that we should maintain the status quo. Yesterday, we had elected or nominated some new members, and that was agreed in our executive session. I think that committee should be allowed to take forward the mandate that it has at present, which is the big job of assisting in the selection of the CEO. And at some other point, we probably could raise this issue of the membership, but I don't think it may be appropriate to raise it here. And just to say that it would have been more appropriate for us to have raised it yesterday evening when the matters of the SRC were being discussed in the closed session and not at this point. We have also noticed, however, Brenda's recommendation that these things should be put in writing. So if they are, we just make sure they are readily available. If you have to point it, say this is where it is, then fine, so that all know what is the composition, the mandate, the rotation sequence, so that no one is surprised and we don't come to have a discussion on this at this point. So with that said, is everybody comfortable for us to move forward with the SRC as we had agreed yesterday evening in our closed session? I see nodding in the room, so thank you very much. We're going to move on. All right, so
now we move to LDCF.
Thank you, my co-chair. Now we would like to move on to LDCF SCCF Council session. So again, good morning to everyone and welcome to the LDCF SCCF's Council session. I'm sure that Gillian will continue to serve as my co-chair for the this joint session. I just would like to say a few words that to open this LDCF SCCF Council. Yesterday, I think that many of you, and including actually the staff chair, Rosina, mentioned that now the adaptation is finally getting to the much more center stage of the global discourse, and we were very happy about it. We were excited about it. And one of the item or the driver of this adaptation to be at center stage is actually that the report that the commission, the Global Commission on Adaptation, which was created actually the October 2018, but actually started to work very, very actively throughout this year. In September, the Commission, Global Commission on Adaptation, launched its flagship report named Adapt Now, and in fact, the Rosina already and gave you a kind of preview yesterday, and it actually the idea is we all know the adaptation needs to be scaled up and needs to do faster, and actually need to do maybe differently to achieve the scale and the speed which is required. So that this report actually give us a bit of the framework that how we can do adaptation, not only to do more and faster, but to do differently. So as I also mentioned now 2 days ago at the opening of the GEF Council, interestingly, it's not only science who alerted us that the tipping point is very close, or maybe it's already getting over, but actually a lot of economics also telling us that if we do it right, if we do this transition right, it's actually quite beneficial. And this adaptation report did the same thing. If we do this adaptation right, it's not only just an avoid a lot of loss and damage or that the harmful thing, but it also creates a lot of economic benefit, and also that it added and creates a lot of social and environmental benefits. So all in all, that it is a very good thing for the society. So that this report gave us a little bit of the even numbers that how much of trillion we are able to create. Now the challenge is then how we can really get there. The report and also noted very clearly that how to get there part is very, very challenging. They proposed that the 3 different revolutions of the adaptation. What are those revolutions? Revolution number 1 is understanding the risk better. And there are a lot of local knowledge. Our CSO community said that, and we all kind of appreciated it. There are a lot of local knowledge that needs to be maybe combined much better with global science. So how we can really create the knowledge base, a better understanding of actual risks, but also opportunities. So revolution in understanding is number 1. The second revolution we want to see is actually revolution in planning. We still do adaptation and mitigation separately. There is a kind of thinking about mitigation. We talk a lot about system change, but when we talk about adaptation, it still remains a bit of ad hoc or local or short term. So how we can really do the adaptation planning much better to bring it much more upfront and bring it much more long-term strategy, be it's a national development strategy or agriculture strategy or let's say the city planning, then we need to do it, and also the budgeting is another important planning. So how you can really bring the adaptation to those main development framework with planning. So that's the second thing. And on this one, actually, the business sector has also started to integrate the risk much more frontally when they come up with how to safeguard that in their own operation. A lot of movement there. The third and last revolution is finance. How you can do the finance much more innovatively. And there also that it's a bit of the myth in the past that the adaptation cannot attract the private finance. I think this myth is now being defeated, that there are a lot of interest from private sector how to do the adaptation better, so that so all those three revolution of understanding, revolution of planning, revolution of finance, these are three very good framework actually that hook to do adaptation differently. Then what does it actually mean to the GEF? Interestingly, this adaptation report also selected 7 key systems to do things differently. That among those 7 key systems, that we have a lot we can do, like a food system, city system, natural environment. So these are just 3 examples out of 7 so-called key systems, because the report also encourages us to think more systematically. So how those kind of 3 liberations to be applied to those 7 key important systems. So that is a kind of framework. Then that back to down to the earth, that what the GEF or LDCF, SCCF can do things differently using those framework. I think we have a lot to do and based on those within this framework. Number one, our LDCF the operation, thanks to this council, we have started to do things very differently. We were now moving from the first come, first served basis to much more strategic way of doing business, going to kind of batch system, and we have already started to see a lot of benefit of moving there. Then that it also actually help us that, to combine the GEF main trust fund or other funds to do more strategic value. You have seen a lot of multi-trust fund, the joint operation between LDCF and GEF main trust fund within this work program presented to you. Another interesting thing for the GEF and LDCF, SCCF is actually this system thinking. As the report mentioned, that the food system, city system, natural environment are very important key systems to be changed. Then that you know now more than you know very well our food and land use and restoration impact program presents us a huge opportunity to increase the resilience through that operation. Same thing is also our city planning, that a city impact program, as I mentioned yesterday, 2 days ago, that I have started to see a lot of proposals already incorporate resilience and adaptation aspect within that city planning. So all in all, I think we have a wonderful opportunity to show how we can do the adaptation differently, much more systematically, and achieving, eyeing to the scale and speed. So I think that this is how I think the GEF, meaning LDCF, SCCF, and GEF main trust fund can do the adaptation differently. Maybe the last point we can do better and more is actually the finance. Again, as I mentioned in my opening 2 days ago, that I was so impressed and excited to see that the finalist of this challenge program for adaptive innovation, that this is actually the project you have approved just a year ago here at this table, and we called off proposal over summertime, and it's only 10 million window of the fund, but then this 10 million is really try to solicit proposal of the adaptation, how you can do that, actually that the private sector can do the adaptive technology innovation more. And we received 400 proposal valued 500 million, a lot of interesting ideas, and really unfortunately we had only 10 million to honor them. But then it really tells us the issue is really not the shortage of ideas, it's more like a shortage of fund and shortage of mechanism to linking up and scaling up those great ideas. So in terms of finance, we have started to see a lot of innovation. We just want to do more through this program. So all in all, I think that yes, we have a challenge, but we have a very good means to address those challenges. And we would like to, we means GEF, LDCF, SCCF, would like to be a leader in this the global partnership, because there are so much needs for us to do things differently. And I'm pretty sure that with you, and we can use this the fund to take the much more leadership in this space. When ending, I would like to acknowledge and to thank very, very deeply that the donors who actually contributed voluntarily during the September time, and the call for proposal, we received about 180 million, and which really give us more ammunition to go forward, and appreciate your support and appreciate your faith in the LDCF and the SCCF and the GEF. So with that, and I think that we can really do more and together. So again, thank you so much. Let us work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Naoko. Council members, we have in front of us the agenda for the 27th LDCF SCCF Council meeting. Before we move to the adoption of the agenda, there is a reordering of the items on the agenda. So we will start with agenda item 3, which is the progress report on the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. And then we will move to the pledging session for the LDCF and the SCCF, because we have a specially invited guest. And then we will continue with the remainder of the agenda items as listed. Are there any objections to rescheduling or reordering of the items on the agenda? No objections? Can I move now to invite the council to adopt the agenda? The agenda is so adopted. Council members, let us turn our attention to agenda item 3 on progress report on the LDCF, SCCF. And now I invite Gustavo to make his presentation to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and good morning to everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the progress report on the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. Progress both to date, as well as specifying some more recent activities that cover the period from May to October of 2019. As of September 31st of this year, cumulative pledges to the LDCF amounted to 1.56 billion. Of these resources, 1.37 billion has been paid, and 44.5 million of pledges remain outstanding. Funds available for new proposals amount to 64.77 million, and 9 projects will be coming to you shortly under the work program that are seeking $59.55 million for 9 projects. As of this date, LDCs have accessed 1.4 billion for 282 projects, and this includes 3 global projects with LDCF resources that amount to about 14 million, which have been approved to support the preparation of national adaptation plan processes in LDCs, and also for implementation of elements of the LDC work program other than NAPAs. 92 million were allocated from the LDCF to 11 projects in this period that were approved by the Council as part of the June 2019 work program. These projects benefit Angola, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Ethiopia, Lao PDR, Kiribati, Solomon Islands, Gambia, Timor-Leste, Togo, Tuvalu, Uganda, Vanuatu, and Zambia. As of September 2019, 9 agencies have been involved in LDCF projects and programs, and cumulative, as you can see that on the pie chart on your left, UNDP holds the largest share of funding decisions to date with about 51%, followed by UNEP with 13% and FAO with 12%. African Development Bank, World Bank, IFAD, ADB, IUC, and UNIDA are also present in the portfolio. I would like to also note that in the last 3 work programs, if we include the one that is coming to you today, The agency engagement and the share of programming is evolving. So as GEF 7, if you can see on the right on the pie chart, the first 18 months, UNDP and FAO have now 29% of the share, followed by AFDB with 19, ADB with 8, and World Bank with 7. So it's becoming much more diversified across agencies. During the reporting period, 3 LDCF projects were endorsed by the CEO for 19.42 million in grant financing, leveraging 118 million in co-financing. The progress report provides a summary of the expected portfolio level results. 159 out of 187 projects were endorsed or approved for the GEF CEO, by the GEF CEO. They provide the estimate of the number of direct beneficiaries. And these projects seek to directly reduce vulnerability of 22.3 million people and place more than 3 million hectares of land under improved management to withstand the negative impacts of climate change. It's also important to note that given the mandate of LDCF to support the preparation of NAP processes in LDCs, 86 LDCF projects are already supporting countries in their efforts to integrate climate change adaptation in 232 national development policies, plans, and frameworks. The LDCF also assists countries in laying the groundwork for climate resilient development through 86 projects that will enable countries to strengthen their national hydromet and climate information services. The results for these projects that are approved are presented in the work program cover note, but I would also like to highlight that for the first time in the GEF corporate scorecard, you have 2 pages dedicated to the adaptation funds on page 9 and 10, which is, I think, is a welcome addition to the scorecard for the GEF. During the reporting period, the Secretariat continued to hold consultations with countries with remaining technically cleared projects in the GEF 6 pipeline. If you recall, we made this adjustment in the new strategy, and consultations are being organized in person and through video conferencing, and when possible, in line with the GEF National Consultative Dialogue, the NDIs or ECWs. Based on the outcomes of these consultations, 4 countries have confirmed or have updated the GEF 6 pipeline projects for consideration for the work program in December of 2018, and an additional 10 countries have re-articulated or resubmitted their pipeline projects, of which 7 projects were approved in the June 2019 work program. The December work program that we bring to you soon includes projects from 3 countries with GEF 6 pipeline projects, which are Malawi, South Sudan, and Sudan. As of September 2019, cumulative pledges of the SCCF amounted to 356.9, so this is, I just moved to SCCF. As of October 31st, of 2018, 355.6 million for 80 projects had been approved under this SCCF. And of the total projects approved, 292 million were for 68 projects under the SCCF Adaptation program, while 12 projects were approved under the technology transfer window for a total grant resources of $60 million. During the reporting period, 1 MSP requesting $2 million from the SCCF was approved by the CEO, and 1 project requesting $967,000 in resources from the SCCF as a part of multi-trust fund project was approved in the June 2019 work program. 12 GEF agencies were involved in SCCF projects in the reporting period, totaling 316 million. And cumulative, the graph that you see on your left shows the World Bank holding the largest share of the portfolio with 27%, followed by UNDP with 26%, 12% for IFAD, 10% for UNAP. 58 of the 77 SCCF projects endorsed by the CEO provide an estimate of the number of direct beneficiaries. These projects aim to reduce the vulnerability of some 7 million people. In addition, 33 SCCF projects are already supporting countries in their efforts to integrate climate change adaptation into 140 national development policies, plans, and frameworks. During the UN Climate Week in New York in September, in which many of you were present, the GEF co-hosted a high-level dialogue amongst ministers and vice ministers of LDCs and donors. Thanks in particular due to Germany that served as an anchor for this discussion and the LDCF group for hosting this very exciting event. And in this event, 4 countries, Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, and Sweden, pledged a combined total of 160 million for LDCF. Canada also made a commitment to the LDCF at the G7 summit. These contributions are expected to be reconfirmed today during the pledge session, and we thank all the donors for their generous contributions. As Naoko mentioned, based on the LDCF programming strategy, the Challenge program for adaptation and innovation has been launched, and we held an open call for proposals for the $10 million that were available for the program, $5 million each from LDCF and SCCF, and the response, of course, was very, very positive, and we got close to 400 projects from 343 different organizations that total about $550 million in demand. And based on the pre-selection criteria that were published during the call, 9 concepts were selected for further project development for the normal LDCF, SCCF review process. Last week at COP25 in Madrid, the 9 project concepts that were selected were profiled in a standing room only event that's shown in this photograph here at the GEF GCF Joint Pavilion. These concepts are all medium-sized projects and are in the process of technical review by the team and the CEO. I won't go on details about the different concepts just for the sake of time, but you have in your progress report the description here of the different projects that were selected and the different agencies that are involved, and they cover a range of different approaches from climate finance to adaptation, for acceleration of enterprise development, insurance, supply chains, and many other very, very innovative approaches. At the last Campus Council meeting, some of you suggested and asked us to and encouraged us to do more outreach and communications to get the message out regarding the LDCF. And we have indeed taken your requests to heart and have done a number of outreach and communication related activities over the past 6 months. This slide shows some of these activities, including from the LDCF and the Global Commission on Adaptation, which Naoko is a commissioner. This was one of the events that we held, focusing on private sector engagement, as well as the LDCF side event with a number of LDCs and donor representatives and the co-chair of the LDC group. We also had an event at Madrid focused on adaptation and also commemorating the release of GCA report during the climate summit. We will continue to put efforts in getting the message out about LDCF. Finally, I'd like just to mention this, and this was mentioned before, and some of you were in Madrid. This was the first time that we held a joint pavilion at the Unfccc, GEF GCF, and this was a very interesting and successful, we think, initiative to bring people and the two funds together. And it was kind of a one-stop shop for people to come and learn about the two funds and also about, in the case of the GEF, LDCF and SCCF. And it generated a lot of discussions, and we also had a space for events that were always very, very well attended, and also allowed for further build of a rapport between the staff of GCF and the GEF, so that we can start to put more bones into the dialogues that we are having together with the two funds as well as a recipient country. So this was a very successful experience, and we decided to take this experience to next year to Glasgow for UNFCCC COP26. With that, I thank you and turn back to Madam Co-Chair, please.
Thank you, Gustavo, and for a comprehensive presentation. Now I invite the council members to pose any questions they have on the progress report. The floor is now open. One must go first. Cordula, please.
Okay, well, Germany very much appreciates the mission of the LDCF with its focus on adaptation. And on this background, we welcome the report in front of us and acknowledge the progress reached recently implementing the fund's mandate and the new strategy, which we decided upon a year ago. Germany appreciates the ongoing support in both immediate financing for adaptation needs as well as ongoing medium and long-term planning for adaptation, and particularly to vulnerable LDCs. We also welcome the continuous support for national adaptation plan processes that enable countries to integrate adaptation considerations into key policies and sectoral plans, as well as strategy as a means to mainstream adaptation into national sectoral budgets and planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Cordula. Any other comments or questions on the progress report? No? Okay, great. So, council members, you have in front of you the draft decision related to this agenda item. Are there any objections to the draft decision? I see no objections. The draft decision is so adopted.
Thank you so much. So now we move on to actually one of the most exciting sessions. It's a pledging session. And here we would like to actually invite an ambassador of Belgium to the U.S., His Excellency Dirk Wouters. Ambassador, could you please take a seat, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Doing the choreography, but thank you for your patience. Hello to everybody, and really it's an honor to be here at this council session today with all of you as we gather to take stock of the efforts taken towards helping the world's most vulnerable countries addressing climate change. And it are indeed the least developed countries who face the biggest challenge and for whom it is indeed most difficult to adopt. And we think it's our common responsibility to support them in their efforts. I came here to make 3 remarks. First, to state on behalf of my government, the Belgian government, that we value the role the LDC Fund plays in the international climate finance architecture. The Least Developed Countries Fund has a rich experience to share together with recipient countries and implementing agencies. The fund, we think, achieves progress in the most difficult and fragile contexts. We're also pleased with the strengthened engagement by the fund with the private sector and with its investment in innovation. This was my first remark. Second, I also want to state that Belgium will remain a loyal and predictable partner to the LDCF. And that is why we are honored to pledge today a contribution of $15 million to the LDC Fund. And this contribution will be paid this year in 2019. As we all know, the LDCs are confronted to a very young and rapid growing population with social and institutional instabilities and severe security issues which have an additional impact to the climate change consequences they already face. And this contribution that I have just announced will hopefully allow the financing of new projects. And this is a very important remark I want to make here at this council. New projects, among others, the ones that were technically cleared but not included in this work program of the LDCF due to a lack of resources or limitations to the resources. Of course, we have no idea where these remaining projects are likely to be implemented, but we know that these projects are likely to benefit the LDCs, and that is what matters to us, to Belgium, as we want to focus our financial ODA resources to the poorest countries, often the most severely affected by climate change. And so we hope that this contribution, which brings our overall contribution to the fund since 2009 to almost 135 million US dollars, will be instrumental in helping them with that. That was my second remark. Now I go to my last remark. It's about a very important choice the European Union made. It's, I think, a truly generational one, because last week the European Union engaged on its European Green Deal, a roadmap to embed climate action into all policies. And we committed to climate neutrality by the year 2050. And in this context, we cannot support global rules which would undermine environmental integrity and take us back instead of taking us forward. The Green Deal points towards a new direction that will stimulate growth if taken seriously, tackle climate change, and combat rising inequalities. Of course, and it has been mentioned before, COP25 in Madrid may not have delivered what we expected. We think it did not, despite all the energy and the commitment of all the negotiators. But we did not reach an agreement on, for example, Article 6, and so in a certain way we are disappointed. The European Union showed flexibility and open-mindedness till the last minute, including showing solidarity with the positions of the most vulnerable countries. So, therefore, next year must be the year of increasing ambition, and by COP26 in Glasgow, we need to update our nationally determined contributions, our NDCs, and submit our long-term strategies in line with the Paris objectives. And in the European Union, we are ready to do that. We cannot afford to leave anyone behind. The EU and its member states already provide more than 40% of the global climate finance and will continue to scale it up in line with the Paris Agreement's goals. And in its own climate vision, the Belgian Development Cooperation will continue to focus specifically on the needs of the least developed countries and on climate adaptation, both in our multilateral policy and our bilateral policy, including non-governmental actions. Madam Chair, this concludes my third and last remark, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your words of support. And during the Madrid time, it was not an easy negotiation, but actually your support and also this Green Deal coming from Europe is a kind of silver lining that we continue to have hope and we want to continue to move forward. So I'd like to really thank that your country and for your support for GEF and LDCF, but also that your leadership and exercise globally. So really thanking you, and please continue to support us. Now I'd like to open the floor for other the comments. As I may have mentioned that, I should have mentioned that, and because of a bit of a scheduling thing, we switched at the discussion and then coming to the pledging session first, and after this, we will continue to discuss the work program. So that will be the order. So that so this is more like any kind of support to be pledged to be tabled, followed by work program. Marita, please.
Thank you, Noko. We are happy to reconfirm Sweden's pledge done in September at the Climate Summit of 520 million Swedish crowns to LDCF. We decided earlier this year to move from annual support to multi-annual support to ensure better predictability in the funding of LDCF. We believe there is a need for more stable and predictable long-term funding of LDCF to ensure successful implementation of the adaptation strategy that we adopted last year. This is more important than ever now when the adaptation needs need all the funding that we can get.
Thank you, Marita. And now, followed by Tobias.
Thank you very much. Canada is very proud to be a supporter of the LDCF, and in this regard, at the G7 meeting in France in August 2019, Prime Minister Trudeau announced a contribution of $7.5 million to the LDCF for the fiscal year 2020-2021. This is in addition to the $50 million that Canada had previously provided to the LDCF. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tobias, followed by Carola.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Denmark strongly support the focus of the LDCF mandate and the country-driven focus of the support. I'm therefore very pleased to reconfirm the contribution from Denmark of $31 million to the fund in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Carola, followed by Kojura. Sorry, Maj.
No problem. Stepping in for Carola.
You speak in one voice, but Marjorie, please.
Yes, thank you. We're also happy to confirm our pledge, which we have done at the Climate Summit. And as Sweden, we think it's very important to have a more multi-annual support. So we're contributing to 23.5 million for this year and the next 2 years.
Thank you. Kojura, please.
Well, as I said, we consider the LDCF as an important instrument to support for adaptation and those most in need. We therefore, like in previous years, pledged at the Climate Summit in New York 50 million euros for the years 2019 and 2020. We also think it is important that commitments are reliable. This is why we have been doing this for quite a while, and our total pledge amounts up to 350 million euros since the start of the LDCF.
Thank you so much. I think that we are very thankful for this collective support to the LDCF. I just also want to, now the ambassador left, but many of you have pointed out the importance of predictable and stable and predictable finance, so I really appreciated that. Frederick, okay. Maybe, okay, Frederick, please come in.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Well, I'm not a financial contributor, but I'm a donor of goodwill. We always maintain that a friend in need is a friend indeed. Samoa itself was a beneficiary of the LTC, not once, not twice, but many times. So we know what it's like, especially for those at the front line of the impacts of climate change. My own constituency, there are 4 of them who are LDCs. So I think I just want to place on record our appreciation in terms of the goodwill that has been extended, expressed, and demonstrated, not once, but many times. So that's by way of a vote of thanks on behalf of my own constituency and behalf of my own country, who has benefited tremendously from the goodwill of our partners around the table. So thank you, and God bless you.
It's very nice to hear from recipient side that the word of appreciation. Yeah, I just want to really continue to thank you that for your, because the predictability, stability, it's so important. And also, as we mentioned at the beginning, that whether there are a lot of good proposals are already cleared, actually the funds are not really available. And so that the announcement by, for instance, Belgian Ambassador saying that you can pay it now, really give us quite an ammunition to go. So really appreciate your all support. It's going to be a great Christmas gift to everybody. So that with that, thank you so much, and we would like to close this praising session. We'll come back to you that the entire, actually the pot of money that when we come up with the decision. Thank you so much. So now we need to move on to the work program part, and so how we can use those money in an effective, strategic way. So I'd like to invite the team, Gustavo and Gis, to make a presentation.
Thank you, Naoko. Again, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the work program of the LDCF for this December 2019 Council meeting. As you know, the work program is presented at a juncture when global calls for action on adaptation are being discussed and have risen to a very, very high political level. And I want to trouble you explaining more the context, because Naoko did a very good job in her introduction. Just to say that vulnerable countries like LDCs and CIS, they do face disproportionate burden on climate change and potentially irreversible damages to development gains that they cannot afford to lose. The work program that you have before you includes 9 projects requesting 59.95 million in GEF financing and agency fees. 4 projects, Tanzania, Vanuatu, Mali, and South Sudan, are what we call multi-trust fund projects that include GEF trust fund financing that you heard from originally yesterday during the GEF trust fund work program. These projects mobilize approximately 342 million in co-financing against the GEF project funding of 54.78 million. While co-financing is not required for LDCF, just reminding you, each dollar provided by LDCF has been matched by $6.2 of leverage financing provided by other sources, including private sector, agencies, and governments. Combined with the countries supported with the first and second work programs from December 2018 and June 2019, the LDCF is providing support to 27 LDCs, or 57% of all countries that are considered to be LDCs. The total resource program for the LDC since the start of the GEF 7 is approximately 209 million for 26 projects in 27 countries. These are the countries that are supported by the first LDCF work program in December of 2018. These are the countries that are supported by the second LDCF work program in June 2019. And countries supported by the work program include 9 LDCs, namely Mali, Guinea, DR Congo, Malawi, Sudan, South Sudan, Tanzania, Myanmar, and Vanuatu. Drawing from the model of the GEF Trust Fund work programs that we presented yesterday, the GEF Secretariat was requested to assess the technically cleared LDCF proposals based on agreed factors and to constitute a work program with available resources. From the LDCF, agreed factors to be considered for the strategic prioritization have included elements that are listed in this slide before you, with the alignment, of national needs and priorities being the most important consideration that we have undertaken. The assessment of the GEF Secretariat indicated the following. First, all projects confirm and describe alignment with the needs and priorities identified in their national plans, such as National Adaptation Plan processes, National Adaptation Program for Actions, and NAPAs, and also National Sustainable Development Strategies. As a cohort, these 9 projects are addressing all the 3 strategic priorities identified in programming strategy on adaptation to climate change, such as opportunities to foster innovation and investments for technology transfer. The projects also present opportunities to catalyze support, including significant co-financing, again, which is not required, clear private sector engagement potential, and alignment with other funding sources that include the Green Climate Fund, the multi-trust fund modality, and others. Countries with relatively low LDCF support to date are included in the work program, which helps to facilitate access by countries which have been to date relatively underserved by the LDCF. Finally, one project is revised from the GEF 6 pipeline projects, where two other countries that also had GEF 6 pipeline projects have developed new initiatives through close consultation with the Secretariat and the agencies. All these projects are included in the work program. 4 GEF agencies are represented in the December 2019 work program. UNDP with 3 projects represents 41% of the share of the new resources with $25 million, followed by FAO with 25% of the share for 3 projects, and UNIDO is requesting 19% of this amount, or about $12 million for 2 projects. It's my pleasure to also introduce to you a bit more in more detail the aspect related to gender. The 9 projects in this work program responded to the ambition and requirements set out in the GEF policy on gender equality. The projects are seeking to provide equal opportunities to women and to men and enhance capacity to identify climate risks and engage in adaptation measures. As stipulated in the policy, all projects consider gender issues in their initial project design, and most projects clearly describe plans to carry out a gender analysis and to develop gender action plans during project implementation. All projects in this work program provided specific information on the number of direct beneficiaries disaggregated by gender, and 78% of all the projects explicitly stated that they expect to develop sex disaggregated and gender sensitive indicators. In line with the GEF's gender implementation strategy, most of these projects in the work program indicated they expect to include gender responsive measures to address gender gaps, to promote or promote women's empowerment, and 100% of all the projects expect to close gender gaps. This includes, number 1, access and control of natural resources. That's 78% of the projects. Participation in decision making, that's 100% of the projects included. And socioeconomic benefits and services represented by 78% of the projects. In terms of expected results, the 9 projects cover a wide range of interventions. The updated LDCF SCCF results architecture, which is presented as an information document to Council, is developed to have better alignment with the GEF 7 results architecture of the GEF Trust Fund, including specifically the introduction of core indicators and the provision of meta-information for projects by agencies, and also introduced in the LDCF SCCF results architecture. Contributions of the 9 projects in the work program include, first, 7.5 million people as direct beneficiaries, of which 3.8 million are female. More than 157,000 hectares of land under climate resilient management. 63 policy plans or development frameworks that mainstream climate resilience are encompassed, as well as 45,400 people with enhanced capacity to identify climate risks and engage in adaptation measures, of which 23,370 are female. As I mentioned earlier, these data are also reflected in the GEF corporate scorecard for the first time. Some observations and lessons from the perspective of this work program. The work program presents some initiatives with great potential to leverage, to learn from, and also to serve as indication for how can we address global initiatives on climate adaptation at large. For example, the Global Commission on Adaptation and the UN Secretary General's Climate Summit have created a very positive momentum for adaptation, as we heard earlier from Naoko. And notably, the GCA Year of Action has articulated impactful action tracks The cohort of projects addressing land-based actions in this work program is expected to help enhance GEF's engagement with action tracks on nature-based solutions as well as resilient cities. These global initiatives are energizing adaptation discourse with engagement of developing countries, particularly SIDS and LDCs, and they are also cultivating action-based alliances. The GEF and the partnership at large are engaging with these global initiatives to address priorities of mutual concern. Coordination with GCF, as I mentioned earlier, continues to evolve to help more efficient programming. The GEF and the GCF have initiated coordinated engagements since the first pilot was held in 2018. Just some examples for Malawi, a GEF 6 pipeline project that was proposed to support the NAP process, and since then Malawi has received NAP support from the GCF, enabling the country to utilize GEF 7 resources for the implementation of its adaptation priorities articulated in its planning process. In the DRC, the GCF has been supporting readiness activities to advance the NAP processes for priority sectors, and the proposed LDCF project in this work program is directly aligned with this NAP process supported by the GCF. Also, the Myanmar project seeks to coordinate with GCF, complementing and building on the activities to be implemented with GCF support. So these measures and many others enable the two funds to enhance complementarity at the country level and also facilitate LDCF resources to be used towards more impactful and also be much more ingrained in national development policies and increase the potential for scaled up outcomes together with the GCF. If this work program is approved as presented, 27 LDCs will have successfully accessed GEF resources. So I will now end my presentation and hope to hear from you on this. Just one short mention that we are working, of course, with staff on their screens and whatever comes in this process of the rating and comments is delivered to the agencies to take into consideration during project design and preparation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now I'd like to open the floor for your comments, questions, reflections. Yes, please. Who? Oh, Julio. Okay, Julio.
Yes.
Julio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank, in the name of the Southern Africa constituency, for all the supports that GEF has been given for the LDCF, and countries in the Southern African has benefit a lot with the GEF support for the LDCF, and Angola is one of the countries that has have this kind of benefit, and we want just to ask once again a small transactions for those countries in the region that are going to graduate 2020-2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. I want to call on Tobias, followed by Stephanie.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and thank you for the presentation and for a very strong work program. I think I'm very pleased to see that the LDCF has been able to provide more timely support because of the increased contributions, and I'm also very pleased to see a stronger coordination with the DCF and how that actually improved the efficient and effective programming. So I think this is really positive news, and this is something we're really pleased about. Naoko, you mentioned the Global Commission on Adaptation, and Gustavo, you also mentioned it briefly in your presentation, and the year of action in 2020, and how this work program also contributes to this action and the action tracks. I think it'll be interesting to hear more about how would you specifically work with the GCA, the Global Commission on Adaptation. I know that in the work program you mentioned the action tracks on nature-based solution and resilient cities, and also in your capacity now as a commissioner to the GCA. It will be interesting to hear more about how you will specifically work on this in this important year of action in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call on Stephanie, followed by Marita.
Merci.
Thank you. We'd like to thank the Secretariat for this new work program, which is within the limits of the available financing, and we approve it. Particularly the geographical distribution with Africa, Asia is also represented. We welcome the topics and the integration of innovation and solutions based on nature, as Denmark has emphasized. Biodiversity is also emphasized. We also appreciate that urban areas are taken into account and also the coastal areas. We appreciate the coordination of GEF in Malawi, DRC, and Burma. Nevertheless, we regret that there is a high focus on only one agency. It was already the case in the progress report, 50% given to only one agency. And we don't have a lot of time to better diversify these allocation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to call on Marita, followed by Kojura.
Thank you. We can support and approve the proposed work program and welcome especially the information that it includes up to 100% gender responsive measures and foresee to close gender gaps. So we will follow this very closely. It's going to be very interesting, I think. We welcome the integrated approach in the work program and the efforts to strengthen cooperation, co-financing and complementarity between the GEF, LDCF and GCF, as well as with the private sector. This is a really good start. I hope this will develop even further. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I want to call on Kojura, followed by Farhan.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the presentation. We generally welcome the proposed resource allocation across focal areas and regions. And based on a preliminary screening, we welcome the overall high quality of the project proposals. They are well aligned with national priorities and address the goals and objectives outlined in the GEF 7 adaptation strategy. We would like to highlight that the issues discussed in the GEF Council meeting during the last days, especially regarding durability of projects and also the private sector engagement, are of similar importance to the LDCF. To achieve durable outcomes, it is key that all projects present a long-term theory of change that includes a strategy for follow-on financing and knowledge management. Similarly, high emphasis should be put on creating sustainable income-generating activities for communities that depend on the ecosystems we want to protect. There is one project, the UNIDO project proposal for the Democratic Republic of Congo, where we feel that there is still some issues to be reviewed and that we would ask the Secretariat to send the draft final project document for Council review 4 weeks prior to COO endorsement. And the details of our comments we will provide in writing as we usually do.
Thank you so much. The last speaker on the list is Farhan from the US.
Thank you. The United States also appreciates the opportunity to provide comments on this work program. We appreciate the work of the Secretariat in creating the work program and the presentation that was just given for many of the same reasons that we've just heard. We'll also be providing additional detailed feedback on these projects to the Secretariat in writing. What we would also request the following statement be incorporated within the written record of this meeting, that the United States, in light of its policies for certain development projects in countries whose governments are not addressing trafficking in persons and whose governments do not have in place a functioning and transparent military audit or which have violated human rights, and in light of its policies for international terrorism, opposes the following projects and therefore does not join the Council decision that would support GEF projects 10159 and 10178. Thank you.
Thank you so much. now it's time for us to respond to your inquiries. I'd like to ask Gustavo to take a few questions.
Thank you. I think we heard lots of comments, which will, of course, take it. We expect your written comments on specific projects, which we will take it up with the agencies. And on my end, I just got one remark to make, which is in regards to Stephanie's comment on the concentration of the portfolio on certain agencies. I'd like to just highlight what I presented earlier, that if we look at the cumulative share that, for example, UNDP had traditionally in this portfolio for LDCF, which was slightly exceeding 50%. What we see now in GEF 7 is a sharp decline. We now have about 20%, 22% on UNDP, and a more equitable distribution amongst other agencies. So I think we are in the right track on that front, and we'll keep monitoring those shares and that data as we progress. Chiz, do you want anything else?
Okay, then I now would like to take this Tobias's question, how we want to work with the GCA and what does it really mean to us. As you may know or may not know, the GCA was created October 2018, and by now it has 33 commissioners, and the commissioners came from quite a different part of the world. It's not only the governments, but it also the private sector, it also the agency, and it also has also a CSOs and a think tank. So it's a quite a diverse group coming from all over the world, and it's actually not only national government, but also local and actually the community. It was a very interesting, diverse group, and that should be like that. And we participated in the from the beginning and started with the strategy exercise that, and it was very interesting. Originally, it has a very diverse view about what the adaptation should do, and it kind of converged that, particularly a few points like how to handle uncertainties, because one of the problem of adaptation is we adapt, but adapt against the fact that so are we going to 1.5 degree, are we going to 4 degree, and then how, if you are farmer on the ground, if you are the city mayor, what would be your plan? Do we have a 1.5 degree plan? Do we have a 4 degree plan? So how we could really handle that kind of scenario? We started with this kind of exercise and kind of converged to what exactly we can do together, so that then this adaptation report is a bit of essence and outcome of this quite lengthy but very interesting kind of intellectual exercise, not only just academic, but on the ground. And we have a very active city, the slum dwellers institution that we are very, very kind of, I very much appreciated that discussion. But the outcome was very interesting. So we identified 7, actually the systems to address. Those systems are kind of most affected by climate change. And it has a food, it has cities, it has water, it has natural environment, infrastructure, disaster risk management, and finance. Those are 7 systems the commission has chosen to apply those lessons I just actually briefly mentioned in the opening, so that then we have come up with this action agenda. The way we came up is that each of the 33 commissioners and the institutions were particularly asked where we can make the most difference, or where we can contribute better. So that in case of GEF and LDCF, we have chosen that the 3, it is food sector for obvious reason, and we have also chosen the cities because we have city sustainable city program, and naturally we also volunteered on nature-based solution or natural environment. Those are 3 particular systems we have chosen to volunteer to make active contribution to. Then that what will happen is the all 33 actually then volunteer here and there. So we come to actually that together to really strategize collectively that how those actions to actually to galvanize those ideas into the more concrete and systematic way. So that's the plan, and we have had a quite an intensive and ongoing discussion that and how we can do that and those and we can do together for this year of action. It's an ongoing process, and particularly the super year 2020 give us a huge opportunity because it kind of unites that those very different actors together, and so that we also eye that what we can do for this CBD agenda, what we can do for that Glasgow agenda, so that from time to time we kind of come together to make sure that we our action do actually to do more than just the sum of the each. So that is a kind of plan, and but again that it's an ongoing process because we just cannot stop here, and we will continue to work as a group that of those commissioners. But I really need your support for us to do the most contribution, the best contribution in those and the agenda, the system we have chosen. But if you have any suggestion for us to do more, please also let us know. And that is mostly the where we are and our plan to utilize those global commission adaptation. Thank you.
One more thing. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I'd like to respond to the question raised by Angola on the graduating LDCs. As we know, during the GEF 7 period, 2 LDCs are scheduled to graduate from the LDC status, and that is Vanuatu and Angola. And we also know there is quite a number of countries that are in the process of being assessed by CDP for the graduation from the LDC status. So there is an updated information document on this particular topic that was prepared for this council. It's posted on the council website, and I just wanted to highlight that we have been working closely with the countries that are scheduled to graduate so that the countries can access the LDCF resources fully before they go into the next status, which we're very happy about. So both Angola and Vanuatu, Angola programmed 100% in the last work program, and for Vanuatu with the program in this particular project in this particular work program, they will also have access 100% of the LDCF resources. And we will continue to do the outreach and update council as well as the conference of the parties on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have kind of responded to all of those questions and inquiries. And then if it's okay, I would like to invite you to adopt the proposed council decision. Okay, thank you so much. The decision adopted. Thank you. Yeah.
Council members, we are at agenda item 6. Any other business? Is there any other business? Yes. Stephanie, please.
A very small thing, and for that I will just do it in English. The presentation from all the items of the council are really very good presentation and documentation. So it would be very much appreciated to post it in the website so we can use it after. Thank you very much.
We will. Yeah. Most of the presentations are already on website, so please go to the website. But thank you so much for your appreciation of those materials. So now we directly go to the adoption of the joint summary that we have. We just now that start distributing those draft joint summary. So please take. So we will take maybe a few minutes and for you to take a look at it.
Good, all right. Council members, thank you very much. I hope you've had an opportunity to review the joint summary for the council meeting. So let us get going. Are we all ready? Great, good. Okay, so let us go section by section, and in some cases para by para. So I'm taking paras 1 to 5. Paras 1 to 5. Any comments? So adopted. Para 6, which is just a chapeau. So adopted. We then get now to agenda item 4 on the GEF monitoring report. Para 7. Para 8. No comments, so adopted. We now get to decision on agenda item 5, on updated policy on minimum fiduciary standards. Para 9. Para 10. Peter, please.
Thank you, Gillian. Happy to let the text as published go through, but for consistency, we should stick to a single naming convention for meetings. So rather than talk about the meeting in December 2020, ideally we would refer to the 59th meeting, but I'd rather just leave that as a comment for future reports and not delay the progress of the approval of this one. But I'd just urge consistency in naming of meeting conventions. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Noted for further reference that we need to be consistent. Para 11. Para 12. Okay, adopted. We now move on to decision on agenda item 6 on the report on assessment of GEF agencies' compliance with minimum standards in the policies on environmental and social safeguards, gender equality, and stakeholder engagement. Para 13. Bullet A, bullet B, bullet C. No comments, so adopted. We now move on to decision on agenda item 7 on GEF's private sector engagement strategy. Before we get into the para 14, there are a few amendments. In the third line, please delete the word after the comma and. Instead of drawing, put draw, and instead of broader, further. So it would read, the Council, having considered document GEF C 57/06, GEF's private sector engagement strategy, request the Secretariat to review the document in light of the discussions held, draw on further consultations, and continue. I now put para 14 to your consideration with the amendments. No comments? Decision adopted. Moving to decision on agenda item 9, semi-annual evaluation report of the Independent Evaluation Office and Management Response, para 15. No comments? Adopted. Decision on agenda item 10, strategic country cluster evaluation of the small island developing states, para 16. No comments? Adopted. Decision on agenda item 11, a methodological approach for post-completion verification, November 2019, para 17. No comments? Adopted. Decision on agenda item 12, work program for GEF Trust Fund, para 18. Yes, sorry. Because this is such a long thing. We will take para 18 to 93. Para 18 to 93. Please feel free to skip through. Any comments? All right, no comments? Stefan. Stefan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, that's a big chunk that you wanted to gavel through. Our comment is on para 90, and this may be standard language, but nevertheless, my neighbor to the right and I stumbled over the same thing. It's in line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The sentence that reads, provided that the final project documents fully incorporate and address the council's da-da-da-da-da-da. And the question is, does the word incorporate make sense? Because maybe the comments that were made were not to the point, or were do you incorporate these comments, or isn't it enough if we say fully address the council's and the staff's reviewers' comments? Thank you. Kudos go to Aparna.
Thank you, Aparna. Always much better.
Just a question. The projects, we have asked to be able to review them before they go to CEO approval. Where do we find them, or how is this being covered? Normally there's a footnote.
Can I?
Yes, yes.
Cordula, if you go to page 10 and paragraph 73, that's the start of it. It says, with respect to the 16 projects, Council requests Secretariat to arrange for Council members to receive the final documents. And then you have a list of these. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Gustavo. Any other comments? Okay, so with the slight amendment to para 90, which will now read, provided that the final project documents fully address the council's and staff's reviewers' comments, and we continue. So we adopt paras 18 to 93. Council members, moving on to decision agenda item 13, towards greater durability of GEF investments, para 94. Any comments? Adopted. Decision on agenda item 14, relations with conventions and other international institutions, para 95. Adopted. Decision on agenda item 15, approval of amendment to the MOU between the Conference of Parties serving as the meetings of the parties to the Kyoto Protocol and the Council of the GEF regarding Secretariat services to the Adaptation Fund, para 96, the chapeau. Bullet A, bullet B. Any comments? Adopted. Decision on agenda item 16, strengthening consultations with civil society, proposed topics for discussion at the consultations of the 58th and 59th GEF Council meetings, para 97, the chapeau. Bullet A, bullet B. Any comments? Adopted. Decision on agenda item 17, report of the Selection and Review Committee. Para 98, the chapeau. Bullet A. Bullet B. Any comments? Yes. Cordula, please.
I just have a question beyond what is in this document. There was still open questions on the process for the CEO selection yesterday morning, which, so I wonder when is the right moment to discuss these. Because you don't want to discuss this in the big group, so it was just a question of procedure.
Okay, thank you, Cordula. Peter, please.
Thank you, Gillian. My recollection of the session we had yesterday morning was that the SRC committed to follow up in writing shortly after this meeting with an updated process note, and that would come from the incoming chair of the SRC in the course of the next couple of weeks. Well, early January.
Thank you, Peter. That was also my recollection. Cordula, you're good with that? Yes? Great. Okay, so no comments to para 98, adopted. Decision on agenda item 19, other business, para 99. Para 100, the chapeau. Bullet A, bullet B, bullet C. Any comments? Adopted. That's it for this one. Council members? Yes, let us turn our attention to the joint summary of the chairs for the 27th LDC SCCF meeting. I assume everybody has their text. All right, let us start. Ready? Not ready. Okay, now ready. Okay, great. Paras 1 to 3. Any comments? Adopted. Decision on agenda item 3, progress report for the LDC fund and the Special Climate Change Fund, Para 4. Any comments? Adopted. Decision on agenda item 4, work program of the LDC fund, Para 5. Para 6. Peter, please.
To follow up the point made in the previous discussion on the agenda, to remove the words incorporate and we simply fully address.
Thank you, Peter. Para 7. Para 8. Para 9. Para 10. So with the slight amendment to para 6, this decision is adopted. Okay. Moving on to the pledging session to the LDCF and the SCCF, para 11. Para 12. No comments? Adopted. Other business? Para 13. Para 14. Para 15. Great. Thank you, council members. Council members, and I thank you very much for having given me the opportunity to co-chair this session. It has been an absolute pleasure. It has also allowed me to better understand the inner workings of the GEF. It's quite a bureaucracy. Well,
thank you.
And just to express that the GEF remains a very important global mechanism for development, especially in our developing countries or the recipient countries. And the Council plays a very, very important role in development at all levels. And so we must not disregard the role that we play here when we sit here for 4 or 5 days discussing the business of the GEF. And I also think that based on the expertise that I've seen here, the collective expertise here, I think we're in good hands. So thank you very much. I will definitely pass on what I've learned to my colleagues and my constituency. And also thank you for the excellent work that you have done this week. Thank you.
Dear council members, I also want to join Jillian to thank you. Just reflecting for the last 3 days, I just want to go back to one of the questions posed maybe yesterday. What is our plan for 2020, super year 2020? Do we have a plan? I really want to say we want to continue to aim high because 2020 is such an important year, super year, but it's also make or break year for the humanity and our planet Earth. So, we need to understand this landscape is changing very, very rapidly. And in order for us to make sure that the GEF has a right contribution, to make a right contribution to this ever-changing the landscape, I think we need to really understand what is our very unique value proposition. And to me, this really comes from this partnership for actions. I think the science is getting clearer, that the economics provide a lot of good reasons why we need to move and then for transformation or transition. But what we really can offer to the community is our actions. We are kind of, all, struggling how we can make this a transition much better and much easier. The only way I think that and we can propose is this, and how to propose this pathway, how we can really do this transition together, that we can present the food and land use, and we can present sustainable cities, we are presenting the forest management, we are presenting the nature-based solution, and by doing this, continue to do that, I hope that we can come together and make this transition that collectively, and that would be my hope. And I think that we have already made quite a good success that by presenting those clear pathway together. And by just finishing those last 3 days, I am quite confident that working together, we create and continue to present this pathway, actions, but it can be only achieved by working together. Just for that, if you recall that our work program, both GEF Main Trust Fund, but the LDCF, creates so much of the innovation, so much of the the contribution to showing this pathway, and then a very difficult discussion on how to update our standards. It's a fiduciary standard, the safeguard, and the gender and engagement. It actually assures us that to guarantee us that this institution can continue to be held accountable to your ambition. So that with that, then I think that we are really, as Gillian mentioned, that I think that we have a lot to offer and to contribute to this maybe largest challenge of the humanity. So I'm very proud of what we have done together for the last 3 days. But it's just maybe I want to finish by my personal reflection or collection. For the last 3 days, there are several times that moment that I thought that how I can do things better going forward, because sometimes I feel that maybe much better communication between Secretariat or me and you could have things, could have maybe help us do things better. And for us, the GEF is a 24/7 business, so I always think that the GEF, but maybe from your point of view, maybe much better communication between us and you may actually also help you focus that what the GEF can do. So going forward, next 6 months, I'd like to assure you and assure us that we always think about how we can do communicate things better. So that we can actually aim higher, and that would be maybe my recollection of the last 3 days. So that thanking you, but also that taking this lesson forward, and we want to really look forward to meet you again in 6 months' time. Before ending, I really would like to appreciate Gillian, my very able co-chair, who saved me and several times for the last 3 days. And without her collaboration, we couldn't have this finish this council so effectively. So thank you, Gillian, and thank you, everybody, and have very safe travel back. Thank you.
So before we go, I'd like to invite...
Just to say, though, council members, that we couldn't close also without recognizing the hard work of the Nayoko and her team. It is quite impressive. So thank you very much for all the work that you have done and continue to do, and we express our appreciation. Thank you. Okay, Feturi.
Thank you for giving me the floor. I think conventional wisdom dictates that it is usually the most senior amongst us who gets to speak on behalf of the group. Traditional wisdom also says that in Samoa we have paramount chiefs and we have talking chief. I'm taking the floor simply because I'm a one council meeting member, but I think I want to place on record, and that has been my overarching theme throughout. Gratefulness, thank you, and gratitude. And I'm grateful to the Secretariat for letting our constituency know that our council and alternate members weren't going to be present, because it wouldn't allow us the opportunity to be able to say what we've been saying from day one. So just want to, again, on behalf of our group, to convey our gratitude to the co-chairs for the job well done. As I said also, and all the people behind the scene, they are the ones who are doing the heavy lifting. And yet it's us who get the accolades, it's us who get to speak, it's us who get center stage attention. They are the ones, I think, we owe them a vote of thanks and a vote of gratitude. So I will be sharing my impressions of our meeting with my constituency, and to thank them for the opportunity to represent them even for this very, very important meeting. So again, on behalf of our council, we want to thank the co-chairs, the Secretariat staff, civil societies, and all those who have faith in the GEF. They are not in this room, but through their support, GEF is getting stronger. And for us, a partner will always be a partner no matter what. None is subservient or insignificant, because the total sum of all their contributions is what allows us to be able to address the impacts of climate change. So thank you, thank you, thank you.